thank you everyone for coming out to our Payables Nation Tour. I'm Shauna Steib. I run product marketing for Tipalti. Just giving you guys a quick rundown of what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk a little bit about kind of why I think you guys came here today, the opportunity in finance organizations. We're going to have a talk from our esteemed panelists here. We have Shayon from Zola and Mitch from Foursquare. They're going to talk about how they've been able to leverage technology in their finance organizations. And then I'm going to do a quick demo of Tipalti, and then we'll save some room at the end for Q&A. And then, of course, we'll wrap things up with a nice steak lunch. So let's get started here. So just providing a little bit of background on our tour, kind of what we're doing here. So we're going around the country. We're having finance experts working at growing companies talk about their experiences. So the challenges they faced in their businesses, how they were able to overcome them, stay more compliant, be more efficient, and focus their team on other more strategic activities. And kind of the approach we wanted to take here is sharing this information through an engaging conversation, so you're not just listening to me here talk forever. So yeah, we hope everyone will be able to take something away from our conversation today. So the theme of our event is Payables transformation. So I'm just going to kick things off by talking a little bit about why that's important now, so why you should do that now. So kind of the first thing here is it starts with the evolution of finance. The finance organization has evolved from finance experts to really being that true leader, partnering with other organizations, other departments in the organization. So finance is doing a lot more today than accurately closing the books, preparing financial statements, and working with auditors. You know, there's a lot more scrutiny, both internally and externally, around compliance. You know, there's things like business models are becoming a lot more global, data sources. There's a lot more of them, just a lot more complex. But despite all this complexity, we have service and responsiveness. It's still key to all stakeholders. And you also have to think about, you know, your supplier ecosystem and what you're doing there. Their needs are a lot more critical today, too, than they were before, because, you know, pay a supplier late or continually don't pay them the correct amount, well, then they might withhold service, and then you have a delayed operation or something of that sort. So just a lot more complexity and a lot more responsiveness is what we're seeing here. And of course, with globalization, the on-demand workforce, we have a lot of M&A activity going on, a lot more global suppliers. That's, of course, just going to add more complexity. And finance needs to be able to adapt rapidly to this, but at the same time, finance is spending a lot of time on mundane activities that don't add a lot of value. So we've heard from customers, you know, AP might be called even the backwater of finance, you know, kind of, oh, they don't get a lot of technology, not necessarily known for innovation. Sometimes you might hear it as referred to the necessary evil, you know, the other business line managers say, oh, AP, they just want to reject everything and complain about everything. So kind of, it's just this group that's just expected to work in the organization. But because it is largely manual today, that's the reason why it's the most time-consuming function in all of the finance group. But when you think about it, there's many key AP processes around tax, regulatory concerns, you know, fraud, that if you don't address those concerns today, you're not really setting your organization up for success tomorrow. So really, this opportunity to modernize AP has some obvious benefits, you know, freeing up finance to work on other projects, cutting out inefficiencies, being able to scale your payables operations, reducing errors and risks. And that's where the whole idea of payables transformation comes in. That's when these finance teams are looking at technology to really take away the manual work. So really enabling CFOs and their teams to really step up and take that leadership role in the organization, get rid of that manual work, and focus on other activities. And really, that's what Tipalti helps you do. Scale and make sure your payables is done right, so you can focus on the bigger issues that affect your company. And that's really what we're seeing going to drive greater impact across the organization. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Scott and our panelists to talk about their experiences.
Great, thank you, Shauna. My name is Scott Olson, and I'm Director of Customer Marketing for Tipalti. And I've spent the majority of my career in software that's been aimed at improving decision-making and automating functions of finance and operations. And today we've got two rising stars of finance, Shayon and Mitch. We're delighted to have you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
The two of you each work for some really innovative companies. And in fact, Zola and Foursquare have had some recent venture funding announcements, and so let's get started. Let's kick it off with you, Mitch.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about Foursquare and your role there.
Sure. My name is Mitch McGrath. I'm the finance and accounting manager at Foursquare. I've only been there since April this year, so I'm pretty new. We're a technology company that provides location intelligence to our customers. I'm sure some of you, I don't know how often you use it these days, but we have our consumer apps called Foursquare City Guide and Swarm. For an example of how we monetize this is getting the foot traffic data from these first-party check-ins and being able to really monetize and provide that data to our enterprise customers. Prior to Foursquare, I worked at a telecommunications company as an accounting manager. And before that, I worked in public accounting, started my career at KPMG for about 6.5 years. So yeah, it's good to get out of that public accounting industry.
Yeah. Shayon, tell us about Zola and your role there.
Yeah, so my name is Shayon Donaldson. I am the AP manager at Zola. Zola is a e-commerce wedding registry website. We sell products similar to what you can find in Bed Bath & Beyond and Macy's for those who are obviously getting or get engaged or planning their wedding. So that's the gist of Zola. We just had a Series D funding this year. We've been in business for about 5 years and are continually expanding to other means of funding through invitations and also inspiration products as well.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the philosophy and kind of the goals your finance teams have these days. Mitch, start with you.
Sure.
What are some of the goals for your team this year and helping your company kind of scale?
Sure. I think our overall philosophy within finance is kind of investing really heavily on technology versus just pure manpower. As can be seen by implementing Tipalti at the start of this year. We're also implementing technology to help with our collections process rather than having my team to call customers every day. And then I think overall, just really growing the company and growing our revenue. That's our company goals for this year, and really investing in the Foursquare technology as well. So.
Okay. Shayon, how about you?
Yeah.
What are the teams, how are you guys trying to support Zola?
Yeah, so definitely we're just making sure that we're able to scale our business as we continue to grow year over year, just to reduce the manual work that accounts payable will have to do as far as invoicing, just making sure that we can grow our business but also be as lean as possible.
I'm going to stick with Shayon on this one. Although you are new as well, kind of to Zola, you weren't there as it really started to take off. But at what point was the payments operation becoming a challenge? And to the point where you guys, you in fact had another solution as well trying to tackle it, but what was happening there? And explain the scope of your invoicing.
Yeah, so I came in right when we were transitioning from our previous software to Tipalti. And like I mentioned before, we are growing, doubling our sales from the previous year. We primarily do dropship invoices, so we have vendors send the products directly to the consumer. And most vendors, they invoice us per order. So last year we did over 600,000 orders. So imagine processing 600,000 invoices manually. That's definitely not possible for a team of like 4 people. So we just realized that the software we were using before is not going to be reliable enough, considering that we're also growing even beyond the 600,000 orders from last year. So we definitely needed something that can be a little bit more automated and also reduce the amount of human error that can potentially happen dealing with so many actual invoices.
Yeah, and also you guys have a review for every invoice. It's not a matter of getting it into the system, but it's also people have to actually get involved.
Right, so every invoice requires an approval. So just previously having to have not only the finance approval, but the business unit approval. So just having people who are not in the finance field, who are not doing accounts payable as their day-to-day, having to be like consumed with, that work on top of their actual work. It just wasn't viable enough where they can still focus on their actual duties.
Mm-hmm. And Mitch, what was the payment operations under the challenges that you guys were having that you decided we've got to fix this?
Yeah, well, I didn't know you had 600,000. That makes me feel a bit better. I think we have like 100 to 200 invoices a month. But even then, so this is kind of before my time. I think we implemented at the start of the year. But prior to that, I've spoken to my coworkers, and it was a completely manual process. So our vendors would email like a Foursquare email. One of us in finance would, get the invoice and then, find whoever the account holder to that vendor is within the company, get them to either verbally approve it or email approvals, very informal. And then, once that was done, someone in finance would have to, literally punch in the details of the invoice into our ERP, which is NetSuite. And then once it was ready for payment, we'd have to physically print off checks and wait for the CFO to be at his desk to sign those checks before we mail them out. So you can see it's a pretty inefficient process, which called for a change in automating and speeding up that process. And having Topolti, I can't really compare it, but I can understand how much of a pain point that would have been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even at 200, it's
it's a lot.
It's a drag on your operations for sure.
Definitely.
So your company's decided to make a change. They wanted to automate as much of the accounts payable process and operation as possible. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about your workflow today. Let's just get into how does it. You just explained kind of this approach they had before. Mm-hmm. Can you explain how the workflow goes now today?
Sure. I would, to the best of my ability. I'm not too hands-on in Topolti. I have Cecilia here, who's a finance associate at Foursquare. I don't know if you want to chime in on the day-to-day process on the workflow with invoicing and payments, and then I can probably add on to that.
So the way it works now, we have an email set up, and then once we each our vendors know that email address, we get automatically sent to the copy. So if it's an invoice, if the vendor has already been set up in the system, the copy is able to pick up vendor name. If it's not, then we just have to set them up on the copy by sending them a registration link. The registration link allows the vendor to just set up payment information and what we want for. And then what the copy is able to do is pick up invoice number, invoice date, and then the amount. So it's not manual anymore. The way it used to be in the past is that we have to manually add it. Now we just have to check it and make sure that it's correct. And then what we do is if we have like a proof of who has the not just the regular account, we can just approve the invoice number. And then instead of cutting the checks, the copy is able to we're just able to do it through the system and do a payment match. And then our CFO is able to approve just by clicking the button and then check and automatically cut and out.
Yeah, and I guess to add to that, Topolti, as I mentioned, we used to just get email approval. Sometimes, they wouldn't respond. So Topolti kind of ensures you can set managers to every vendor, so it gets approved by the right department, and it leaves the audit trail. So it's good for the controls and showing our auditors we're doing the right thing. In addition to that, you're coding invoices, which is synced to our NetSuite. So when we process an invoice, it automatically links up to NetSuite. So we don't have to worry too much about cutoff issues and things like that. And then finally, as Cecilia mentioned, the whole payment side of things is automated. So there's none of this printing check stuff. We just basically tick the invoices that we need to pay, press pay now, and it's all automated. Obviously, it goes through CFO approval still, and that's it. That's all done. So.
Outstanding. That's great workflow. And Shayon, now with the hundreds of thousands of invoices you guys are dealing with, how is your new workflow working?
Yeah, so we have two different types of invoices, manual entry and also API. We use SPS Commerce for our EDI vendors, so everything's done electronically. And then it gets sent to our proprietary system. We call it admin, which hosts where all of our sales data is, our cost for specific products. That information gets sent to admin as long as it matches up. Our admin system speaks to Topolti and transfers that information so that it's automatically processed. We don't even have to approve those EDI invoices. And for the manual things, when a vendor emails us an invoice, we will email it directly to Topolti. Topolti has a feature where the vendor can upload. We just don't use that functionality right now. But Topolti will read the information through OCR, and then after time, we'll learn the information so they can easily extract the vendor name, the SKUs that's being listed on the invoice, and also who usually approves the invoices, so that even whoever's manually processing the invoice don't even have to select the approvers, because Tipalti over time will learn who normally approves those specific invoices. And then once it gets manually processed, it will go to the approver, who can either approve within Tipalti or via email. They can just click approve or view the actual invoice if they need to know more information. And then after that, it will be sent for being ready for payment, and then we just have to click pay now if we're ready to pay the actual invoice, either now or by the due date.
Okay. And then the monthly close is something, Mitch, I think you're involved with. Shayon, a little bit as well. But let's talk about, as you're closing the books, the reconciling of all these payments that are happening, and you've got a system like Tipalti, and you've got an ERP or a general ledger. Yours is NetSuite. Let's talk a little bit about the monthly close and how that process works together with the ERP and Tipalti.
Sure. So I guess the Tipalti is just a component of the close. To give you an indication, we probably used to close just AP around business day 20 prior to like really using Tipalti. Now we do it in business day 4. So we can basically cut out the whole manual component of, as I mentioned, like typing invoices. There's always the room for error. And then now, we have a hard cutoff of business day 4. We basically send out all outstanding invoices, remind account holders within the company to approve invoices, and it's all automatically processed. So, I mean, we just completely rely on it now. So, we don't really have to reconcile numbers, and, we don't have to worry about duplicate payments, for example. Tipalti has a warning system where if a vendor sends 2 invoices of duplicate nature, it gives you a warning. I mean, who knows? We could have maybe double paid vendors in the past, when it was more manual. But yeah, so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I mean, yeah, the fact that we've been able to cut from business day 20 to 4 and then close that entire month, that previous month by business day 10, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we've implemented Tipalti, and we don't have to worry about these, like, I don't want to say trivial, but like a lot of the time consuming, like manual part of the close.
Yeah. And Shayon, this isn't your direct what you manage per se, but and you guys have a different ERP system, Intact,
Yes.
And it's not integrated with Tipalti, but there's still a way to close the books, and I just want to know a little bit about that workflow that you guys do.
So currently it's not integrated. Hopefully we'll have that done soon. But the good thing about Tipalti right now is that I can, or the accounting team can export the information of the bill details from Tipalti and then easily import it to Intact. So the fact that we can still see where things are being booked, by how much, it can still help with the reporting that standpoint. And Joe, I don't know if you want to chime in as far as other functionality of Intact with Tipalti.
Yeah, I'm the controller at Zola and kind of manage the monthly close process where Shay is doing all the soup to nuts. But we have, as Shay said, no integration directly with Intact and Tipalti, but it's still right now satisfying our needs as a business, and we're able to close the books. We, in the near future, know that we can set up some sort of integration between the two, and we've talked with the Tipalti engineers and our own internal engineers about setting up either some sort of API or even just FTP to be able to just at a summarized level. As Shay said, we have 400 vendors and hundreds of thousands of transactions, so we're going to definitely brainstorm ways of getting the two systems to talk to one another. But even as it is right now, we could go on and satisfy our accounting needs without having any integration set up. We treat Tipalti as like our sub-ledger and Intact as our general ledger, and it works just fine.
Okay. All right. A little bit about supplier onboarding. Shay, I'm going to stick with you for this one because it seems, well, all suppliers or vendors are important to a business, but in your case as an e-commerce company, it's a unique relationship. So let's talk a bit about supplier onboarding and just how that's gone with Tipalti paying your suppliers. And that was a change. They had to kind of get off of a prior system and move on to a new one.
Yeah, so I mean, our vendors are the heart of our business. Without them, we won't be able to actually run our business. So with our old system that we had and transitioning to Tipalti, Tipalti was very helpful with reaching out to the vendors and sending out a registration link saying, this is our new software, this is what we will need to do to get paid. It's very simple to register. All you have to do is just input your banking information, your contact details, and also your W-9 information without actually having to import any type of forms. Everything can be done within the system. So reaching out to the customers and following up with the customers, our vendors as well, that was definitely helpful for Tipalti to help with us. But also, if for whatever reason, if a vendor did not choose to register with Tipalti, the fact that we can manually on the back end add in that information so that we don't have to disrupt any potential payments going to the vendors, that was also awesome. And then one thing that I definitely enjoy about Tipalti is that the vendors have visibility on payment history, invoice history, so that they can see if something's missing in the system. It's more so they don't have to email us to ask, they can log in themselves and see if something's missing, or if they're inquiring about something, they can go into Tipalti and confirm themselves, like, okay, I see a payment is being processed or a payment was made last week. So the fact that it can minimize the communication where if it's like 10 o'clock at night, they can log in themselves, but also showing that we can continue to maintain our relationship with them because it's word of mouth. If they can show that we are actually paying our stuff on time, things are being automated, they can, spread to another vendor who might be in the business that we're interested in to say, okay, yeah, Zola is definitely on top of making sure that we get paid, and I would recommend them for you to use as well.
Outstanding, yeah. And Mitch, let's just get an understanding. Who are you guys paying? It's kind of how it's your operational spend at Foursquare there, and then how that's gone getting your suppliers onboarded to this new way of getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much what Cheyenne said. I mean, we pay probably about 95% of our vendors on Tipalti now. Exclusions being, anything that comes directly from our credit card for the most part. But yeah, anything from, utilities, rent to, our data centers, our legal fees, our media costs, pretty much everything. And yeah, I guess onboarding them, yeah, exact same. I mean, I think originally it was just more about informing our customers, hey, we have a new AP system, send them the registration link, and then from then on, it's pretty much straightforward. It's a step-by-step. I believe they upload their account information and their W-9, so it kind of ensures that we're tax compliant as well. And then to kind of add on to what Cheyenne said was, when not only can, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but not only can vendors kind of log in and see what the status is, they also get emails, when a next step has been progressed. So for example, when we remit payment, they get an automated email saying, hey, Foursquare has remitted payment for this invoice. So it does cut a lot of time off our hands because we're not having to respond to vendors going, when are you going to pay? Like we've already told them automatically. So have I missed anything, Celia? I think that's kind of
Okay. And let's get into some of the efficiencies, some of the, you've done the work to modernize your AP. What's the big impact that's happening for you guys? I mean, you've said some things that are really interesting, like a 20-day close down to 4, but love to hear you go through this change, you modernize. How is it worth it to you guys? What's the benefit so far? So Mitch, we'll start with you.
Sure. So number one would be timely close, at least from my position. It's good to be able to close the books on business day 10 now. Number two, probably the fact that vendors are happier. I wouldn't say they're always happy, but it's a big improvement from how we used to pay and the timeliness of payments, which obviously leads to better relationships and negotiating discounts and things like that. And then number three, it's basically really reduced errors. As I mentioned earlier about duplicate invoicing and things like that. So it's really eliminated our time spent on AP, but also reduce the risk of error in invoicing where we used to manually do it. So I think they're the three main points for us anyway.
And Cheyenne, how's the impact for you guys?
It's definitely a time saver in the sense that we don't have to do as much manual things, which also reduce the risk of errors, human error. And also for our accounts payable team, it's not where they have to spend all day just doing invoice entry, data entry, double checking their work. So that gives us time to do other projects, actually delve more into accounting or finance things, and not just simply just a data entry. So definitely a time saver on the entry part, but also for our team just being more efficient and not having to in turn have to hire more people, because we can do a vast amount with just a small team, just making sure that we are as lean as possible and working as efficiently as possible with Tipalti.
All right. And then just for the audience here today, any advice, like looking at going through a modernization effort like this to really digitize and automate accounts payable, any advice or any worries you can lessen about how it's gone for you guys? We'll start with you, Mitch. Just the overall experience of implementing.
Yeah, I think we can really. I think implementing new softwares can be daunting to any company, including the individuals themselves. But one thing we've really appreciated is we do get really good support from Tipalti. So when we do have issues, we can always contact support. We have an account manager who's like responsive within the hour. So I think knowing that there's someone going to assist you on the way, definitely. I mean, I wasn't there for it, but it seems like it helped out a lot. And then I think secondly, sure, again, if you overcome that, I mean, you can really allocate more of your time and resources to other parts of finance. I have so much more time to do other things versus like worrying about AP. So I think they're the two key points for us as a team.
Yeah. Sharon, how about you?
Yeah, you actually stole my answers, but it's just more so the efficiency is definitely worth actually looking into Tipalti, knowing that you can minimize the amount of manual work that you'd have to do with the benefits of Tipalti is something definitely it's worth exploring. And also the customer support team. We had a onboarding specialist that helped us during our phase that anytime we had a question, she was there to help respond. And also now that we're actually fully live with the Tipalti, the customer service team is great. I'm emailing them all the time, and they're actually been super responsible. And the fact that I've made suggestions that have been implemented since using Tipalti, the fact that they actually listen to us and try to cater to our needs as well, I definitely appreciate that. They want the product to work for you, so that's really great about Tipalti.
Okay, thank you so much.